If you guys have not opened your notebooks yet, it'd be awesome if you could take them out and open up to where you can jot down a lesson 11. So, today we are going to talk about how do we connect scenes across a series. So, like little bits and pieces of our story as we're going. I'm going to start with an example first to kind of demonstrate what this means and how we might do this as readers. So, we've talked a couple times already about TV shows, TV series, right? And as we go throughout the series, connecting bits and pieces together, that sometimes those small things don't really seem like they mean anything until something big happens, and then we've got that big issue. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm going to share two different types of TV shows with you. Okay. So the first that I have been watching and am caught up with now and I'm waiting for the next season is a dystopic story called The Handmaid's Tale. And it is a book, but it is also a TV series. So in The Handmaid's Tale, my main character, Offred, she ended up doing something the other night as I was watching that I didn't expect for her to do. Okay. Little by little, she's like been working up into the type of person she is becoming. But I was really taken aback. I was taken by surprise what she ended up doing. And it made me start to think about like, where were these little bits and pieces coming in that I had missed throughout the plot line that made this seem like it was such a big deal, that it was really out of character, that it was like an, oh my gosh, I can't believe she just did that kind of moment. Chances are that when I go back to rewatch or rethink, and I did this, and I also did it when I went back and reread the story, is I found those little pieces and it made me kind of go like, oh yeah, you know what? I guess I should have expected this, even though it was something that had happened so slowly throughout the story, and I didn't really see it as big details. So when we think about TV shows where each episode really plays off the next, and you've got that plot line that you really have to follow, like if you miss an episode, you're going to miss the whole story. That's this kind of TV show. But we can think about other kinds of TV shows too. Like I think about Friends, for example. Like you could watch sporadically all different types of episodes of Friends, and you could get what's going on in the story. However, if you start at season 1, episode 1, and you watch all the way through the end, there's going to be a lot of other things that you get and can connect across scenes that someone else who's not watching all of them, and it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so here's what we're going to get into today. The same thing can happen in stories when we're connecting scenes across a text. So, say something surprising happens in the end of book 1 or book 2 or book 3, and it kind of makes you go like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened. We're going to talk about this as being complex. So we've been talking about challenges. And over the last few days, we've explored some of the ways that series can be complex. And I think that what we're talking about today, connecting scenes, is another challenge. We just haven't really talked about that yet. So there's some work that we can do, and we're going to work on that today, that it can be similar to how I just talked about TV shows to you. So what I want to teach you is that in a series, there are often moments in a book that seem random. When readers encounter these moments, they can put them together with earlier scenes to understand what's going on. And I know not all of you are far enough into a set or a series, but you can still do this with your own books as you get further and as you go deeper into your stories. Okay, so one thing that's helpful to remember is that authors do this on purpose. Okay, when something seems random, it usually isn't really random. So my experience with Offred, for example, in The Handmaid's Tale, was that this felt really out of place. But when I went back and looked and I thought about it, it really hadn't been as random as I thought. There were clues along the way that led up that she was going to do this or be this kind of person or take on this role that I wasn't expecting at that point in the series. So when I think about this, I might think about the question, how is this moment related to earlier moments? And if I take time to pause and think about that, I can do some fascinating thinking because it lets us put scenes together across to different books or different episodes or different seasons or different parts of the series. Okay, and it helps us put things together that we might not have put together before. It's taking that time to think about it. Yesterday, we started to study some ways that series readers use our notebooks. And the way that we started using our notebooks yesterday and being critical thinkers and diving deeper and thinking past that surface, that's where I want us to go. I want other students in the future to look at your notebook pages or your examples that I maybe take from you to share with others, and I want them to go, wow, that looks like it's a lot of work. That looks like that person was doing a lot of thinking. That person put time into the way that they were doing their notebook. And you guys are all capable of doing that. We're going to work on getting to those places and to those points. Okay. One of the challenges that we're going to work on is how do we connect these scenes across the series? That's what we're going to work on today. Okay. So the first way that I might do this is I might go back and flip through my notebook thinking about that new moment that just surprised me and I have it in mind. I'm going to flip back through and say, like, you know what, have I put any of these pieces down somewhere already? When I use that lens of looking at things that I jotted before, it might help me explain why my character is acting and behaving the way that they are now. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take a new color pen and I'm going to go back and reread my notes, and maybe you can re-annotate. Maybe you can take a post-it note and put a new color post-it note on your page, okay? And I want you to think with that question, like, how does this moment fit? Where do these new pieces connect to old pieces that maybe I hadn't realized as small details? We're going to make a big difference later on in the story. I'm going to pause for just a second and I want you to think about how that might be helpful. Going back to think about your notebooks and how does this new part fit? But sometimes I find that maybe I didn't actually write it down and that there's nothing in my notebook that relates to this new event. Maybe at the time I didn't see that that detail was important. Okay. So the second way I could use my notebook to help me put moments together is to do some quick jotting about what I now think is important, but didn't think was important the first time. In that case, what I might do is I might make a timeline. So maybe that's what your jot looks like for the day. Here's a timeline, and I'm going to start putting pieces together that I noticed led up to this big event. That way we can start to connect those scenes across and say, like, you know what? Hey, these small moments, these details, boom, that's why we got here. That's where my character is here. Okay. So those are two methods you could use to go back into your notebook, check things out, see where maybe you wrote those details down and where it gets to the point that you are now, or going back and rethinking and retracing and flipping through pages or flipping through your mind and saying, you know what, I'm going to fill this out on a timeline. Here are all of the places that lead up to this big thing. The other thing that we might be able to do is look at ways that we could notice authors and how they work on plot. Did the writer give you hints that something was coming? You might answer that. Did the author bring a minor character back repeatedly? And does that character change? Does that minor character play maybe a little bit more major of a role as we go through the story? Or does the minor character make a big role in our major character? Did something that seemed random at first suddenly become really important? Maybe it's a relationship. In a lot of your books, your characters have relationships. Okay. So if you need help focusing in your writing in your notebooks today, remember you can bullet point ideas instead of writing full sentences. You can use Post-its for quick jots. You can make a chart or a table or a diagram. You might create a list, like you might title it Things I Really Have Questions About. Yesterday, I shared with you in my notebook work that I did a lot of wondering, like I'm wondering if, or I wonder if this is going to happen. A prediction I have is this important? It seems important. And I made a lot of little jots. Okay. Challenge yourself to question your text. Use some maybe statements. For example, here we go. All right. Homework. Today, I want you guys to do it in class. Take 10 minutes to elaborate on an idea you've jotted or marked in your books as you read today. Take your notebooks with you. Jot in them as you're reading. Be quick about it. Okay. You might write long about one of those ideas that you pick out.